I printed out the 33-page PDF of the assembly instructions, and I think what I'm going to do is we'll put this together, each step that they have it in the PDF file. So what we have is 8 M5 25 screws and a 4mm Allen wrench. We're going to use 4 of the extrusions. There was 2 of them in the original packing list number 3 box, and there was 2 in the number 1 assembly. There was 1 rail on each side there. There was a rail on each side there. So we got our 4 rails. We have our frame pulled out. We're going to work on actually this side here on the assembly. These are the furthest cuts in from the edge. Those ones are out to the side. These ones are set in a little further. These 2 screws are going to go into the end of the extrusion. And these rails have a notch for the bolt head, so those are going to face outwards on each assembly here. So let me get that put together. We're just basically going to stand this up, put the 4 screws in. Okay, so we got that finished. Basically just 2 screws go into the extruding, and like I said, you have the slight notch for the bolt head, which is going to face outward. There's the other one. This is what we got now, is the bottom set. The closest, furthest from the edge, rails are on. Next set we're going to do, they're closer to the edge. So just like in the picture, we're finalizing the 4 parts of the frame assembly here. I'm not cranking these down too much. Just going to do a loose assembly now, and once I get everything squared up a little bit and more assembled, and the next part we're going to go into is the control box. So I'm going to put that on a different video. For number 40x4 and the 3mm Allen. The control box, the frame we have done. So let me get this done. We're going to install the control box, but before I did that, I wanted to go take a look at the control box. There's a display box with the knob for your settings, your adjustments on your printer. This has 2 screw notches to fit on here, which I think the reasoning is, which I haven't got to yet, was because probably you could relocate this easy enough with just 2 screws since another location. We have a few stepper wires here. And this one here goes to the extruder with the BL touch and all the other things going on there. There's several fans. So that's the harness for that. Let's take a look at the box, what we got here. Get the full-size SD slot, a USB, some cable management, We have two power connector points here with separate switches, which possibly you could run with a non-heated bed. I would imagine that was the option that they gave you another switch for. And on the bottom we don't have any particular outlets there, just the wire harnesses. So let's go mount this up in the frame and continue. So to continue on here, we have our 4 M4 40 screws, the 3mm Allen wrench, control box I'll bring over in a second, the frame. Now the looks of this, our control box is going to go into the narrower set of rails, which is this one. The extrusions are closer together, whereas on the outside they're out on the edges. So our box is going to fit right in here and use these, which you can't see. These are holes going through. So our box is going to go right here with the display facing outward. And we got the control box mounted in here. And I was quite pleased I didn't have to wrestle this control box in. It sat right against the bottom rail there, and the bolt holes lined up real nice. So it's nice when you don't have to wrestle stuff. Bolts just go right in. The next part of this video is going to be the top carriage, the XY assembly. Alright, I got our stuff together for the top assembly. We're going to do this next. So we have our 5 25 8 screws, and I just looked at this assembly. These are notches are the furthest one in, and then you have the other ones which are closer to the outside. So this is only going to sit one way on the top of this machine. Can't mix it up. Everything's fitting together real well here. And then that's all set. So let me put these 8 screws in, and we'll come back. I got this assembly done on the top. We got 8 bolts all together, 8 screws. Everything went together very well. These extrusions are fitting together real nice. Haven't had any problem with anything lining up. The control box fit where it was supposed to go correctly and easily. Take a look at what we got here. We're going to have a Bowden tube coming into the top. You got your extruder, small Teflon tube going into your all metal hot end here. You got your fan going into your nozzle, two air vents coming into the nozzle. You got your BL touch here. This rolls back and forth, rolls side to side. And the bed's going to go up and down. We're going to do that next. We have 2 Z assemblies going on each side. We're currently installing the 2 Z drives. We got the 8 screws and our Allen wrench and the 2 Z's, which I pulled out of the first packing list box here. 2 Z assemblies. Control box is already in. We got our filament and spool holder left. This box pretty much all done. You just have your power cords, USB, a few more bolts to go. We got 2 more M525s. So our packing list number 2 is almost done. Our bed we still have to do with. Corner braces. So I'd say we're probably halfway through. I tilted this printer on its side just to get access to these holes for the screws. It's just quite a big printer at the moment. You can see the amount of space that you have in here is pretty substantial. You do have to make a commitment for room when you get this printer. I didn't look at the instructions of what we got coming up next. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, just like you guys would be. This carriage assembly seems to be very good quality for the Z. You got four wheels. Some people have been replacing these wheels already with polycarbonate, probably just out of preference. I don't feel any flat spots that sometimes do occur when you have printers sitting in boxes too long. Almost every one of my other printers, when I would get them, you would slide the carriages back and forth and you'd feel flat spots, but this printer here, I have not felt that yet. And of course, it's not 100% yet. I'm going to tighten these all the way because I'm not going to have any good access to this again. People are getting bored of watching screws get tightened. I suppose I would be. Helps when you have a lot of room to put this together. I couldn't imagine trying to do this in a tight space with the 3 boxes and the printer. So I'm going to stand this up. Let's take a look, see what we have next here. The assemblies are done. Top bolts are in. Stepper motors should face the rear, which they do. They face the control box. So next thing we're going to go into is this bed assembly. We'll do that on another video. I'm going to stand this printer upright and get it all set up, and then we'll pull this out of the box and we'll see you in a little bit. I decided to move my assembly out to my garden area here. Just to give you a recap on what we did. We started with taking this square bottom frame out of the package. It was already pre-assembled. We did the uprights. There's two uprights in the back which are in further than the ones in the front. The control panel was mounted between the closer ones. This control panel went in very easy, sat against the frame. There's 2 screws on each side, and all that stuff went in very nice. Next thing we did was we put the top printer assembly on, which includes the hot end and on the 2 drive stepper motors. There's a little cable management back in the corner there. Everything seemed to function good out of the box. The belt was pre-installed. The all metal hot end was all in good shape. No problems there. So now we're going to go on to the heated bed. There's 4 screws that are needed. There's a wiring harness which will go towards the control box. These fit around the Z axis. There's 2 bolts on each side. So let me get that in place here. We got our heated bed in place. There's a notch in the aluminum to go around the threaded Z rods. 2 screws on each side. And now, looking at the instructions, they go to a simpler thing, which is just to put on the spool holder. M462 nuts, and there's some T-nuts here, so that'll T-nut into the frame with 2 screws. So here is the spool holder. The T-nuts and screws were already in the spool holder, so we're going to find this location, which is at the back inner rail next to the control box. Looks like a little bit underneath the stepper motor. Let's see if we could do this with one hand. This is where I'm going to put it. I gotta stop the camera and take care of that. So we got our spool holder on just below the stepper motor on the back rail next to the control box. Let's see what they have for next instruction. Wire holder, M5121. Now this was already installed on this printer when I took it out of the box, which is just cables management. So if your printer is differently set up, good for you. One less step and it says it's finished. We have some corner braces and stuff to do, but let me just take you for a quick walk around on our finished printer. I'm kind of going along with this on the instructions just like you would. I haven't really looked through any of this stuff. I'm just kind of doing it the same experience that you people are going to have. There's one stop there with the stepper motor. There was one wiring harness here, probably this one, which has the cord for the switch and the stepper, and it's on this side of the printer, so kind of can only go one place. The heated bed has a connection here. There's a screw terminals. You stick your wires in there, tighten down the screws. Let's see if we get my camera focused there. So that'll be that connection. The hot end has a larger wiring setup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 connections here. And this cable is to run from the back across the top and hook up. We'll do that in another video, but that's the harness for the hot end. And then we have here, which the printer's sitting on top of, the other driver's stepper connection. So I think this wiring is actually not too difficult at all. These go to the control box, which I said I think can be remoted to another location if you choose to. Move it wherever you feel inclined to. And you get your full size SD with a USB, some cable management here, your heated bed with your dual Z drives. I'm probably going to go back right now and tighten up some of these bolts, make sure I didn't miss anything, and then we'll continue on. I haven't looked past this finished, so we'll do this together. This will be the end of this video, and we'll start up on the next instructions. This should be the last video of our assembly. I'm going to be doing quite a few videos with this printer to show what the capacity is, and I'll include one of the projects that I'm trying to work on with this printer. But right now we're going to do the frame corners. Got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 frames corners. I'm assuming this is not your first printer. If it is, then you're really accomplishing something for yourself. These are what is referred to as T-nuts and bolts. They go into the extrusion very easily. With the turn of the screw, they turn sideways and catch the frame, and then the rest is just a tightening procedure. Once you turn these, they lock into the frame, and then they start tightening. The tapered parts of the screws go outward so that they'll go into the frame easily. I put all these together ahead of time, but just to show you that they just go right in the frames. And once we're going to turn this screw, it'll lock in place and then start tightening. So we got 10 corners to do. I don't want to bore you with all that stuff, but the next step we're going to be doing is the electrical work. I find if you give these like a real quick turn, you'll see hopefully see the nut lock in place here. Give them a quick turn and that really gets the nut turning into where it's supposed to be. See, so these are locked in place now, and they are tightening down. So I got 10 of these to do. If you look on the instructions, it's pretty simple. We're looking at the other side, but the front of the printer, these go on the inside. On the back, they go on the outside. There's nothing on the bottom. Z, there is one here facing towards the front of the printer. Got 4 on each corner and another one on the other Z bracket. So I'm going to get all these in place. Like I said, I prepared all these. I put the screws in, so no need to videotape all that stuff. Let me get that going, and then we're going to go to the wiring. This printer should be all done. I'll probably start with a very simple item to print. I finished installing our 10 corner brackets, and we're going to go into the wiring real quick here, and that'll probably conclude our instructions, which, like I said, I'm looking through them the same way you are. They gave 2 extra nuts, screws here, which is good. It's always nice to have extra stuff just in case something's not in the package, but so far everything's been here. Haven't had any problem with that. They give you a screwdriver for this connection. But I'm probably going to use my own screwdriver because I could put a little more torque on it. Not that this can take much torque, but it's always good to have a very tight connection on your heated bed. Some of the Creality machines, one of the vendors decided to get a little funny with the quality control and caused a lot of problems with their printers. So it's just a lot of amperage going through a small connection. But these have been soldered, braided and soldered wire, so it should make a good connection. Let's start doing some of these wires here. Doesn't seem like a one-handed operation, so I might stop the video and do this a little more properly. Got that connection for the stepper and our limit switch here. Let me go around real quick. When I get to the hot end, we'll go through each wire because there is 6 different connections there. But these are simple. I'm going to put this together with this. There's a screw connection there. This should be simple enough. And then I'll come back. So, after playing with the wiring a little bit, got a stepper motor driver. This is the limit switch. X-axis limit switch was a little bit longer out of the harness to go to here. The only thing that confused me a little bit was because the coloring is not the same. It crosses over, but it is an on-off switch, so technically I don't think it would make a difference. That's the only thing that really got me a little confused here. We have some fans, BL Touch Auto, heating tube and thermistor, and 2 fans all together here. They're unique connectors. They only fit into each other. They can't cross like this yellow, red, and brown one wouldn't fit into the white and black one, so it kind of guides you along that way. This one here is a little different coloration. This went from all black wires. There's 2 thick ones, 2 thin ones. It went into a red thick and black thin, so we had a color change on that, but it only fit into one connector. So that's about it for the wiring. Please pay attention. 2 pin, 2 pin, 3 pin, 3 pin. The color of the B-touch wires are needed to correspond to each other. That's probably the yellow, brown, and red one. Connect each wire connector to the corresponding connector on the extruder and X-axis stop. The extruders, those just only fit into one way on the connector. And there's X-stop, X-limit switches, all done. So let's see what we have on the next page. Like I said, I'm going along with this just the way you are. X-axis Y motor acts at the upper side of the printer control box, so we've already done that. This one had a switch with the connector, which is in this corner. There's a limit switch and the motor. This one here only had a wire for the motor, so you're not going to mix those up. Heated bed power cables and thermistor wire. The thermistor wire regulates the temperature of the bed, and then you got your electrical connections, and that was over here. I tightened these up very good. Actually, that little screwdriver they gave did come in handy. It fit down in there quite well. And they are as tight as probably you should tighten them. 2 power cables are shown on the right side of the control box. It's a little dark out here, but it's peaceful. Get a little closer. We got our two connectors there. That will be another time when I bring this in, powered up, and run through the controls. So, wire binding and Teflon tube installation. The Teflon tube came with the spool of filament, so we'll grab that out in a second. Goes into the connector and just comes over to the side. This is under no pressure. This is just a feed tube. It's going to be, the wire will be pulled through here, so they didn't need a connector on this end. all of this stress will be between the direct drive feeder, so didn't have to have another coupling there. It's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Let's grab that tube and filament. So we have a 6mm Teflon tube here. Once they go in a little bit, they do lock. People usually put a small spacer in here to keep these from moving if they're on like a high stressed area. This is just a feed tube, so I don't think it's going to take too much abuse. The next tube goes into here, snaps in. This will go down to our filament. And there's the filament holder. I've never fed filament into a direct drive printer. I'm not sure how much of a task that is. Typically you cut the end of the filament at a very sharp angle so that it gives you a small area to get into the extruder tube. Open this up here. So this is not the best connection off the spool to feed into the tube. So what you do is take your cutters and put a sharp edge cut on that, so that when it gets up finally to the extruder, it'll go in and pass through everything nice. That probably won't pass through nice. But we're not going to get to that point yet. Our build is pretty much finished. Haven't powered it on, but next step is to move this in the house, and we'll do some small test prints. I'm going to do some cable management here with some zip ties. There is a modification online which I'm probably going to do on this printer. It takes this and it puts it into a cable chain so that it doesn't move around as much. Let's see what we got on our next page here. Yeah, rear bracket, left side, control box. This is all just cable management. This is a belt diagram, which this already had the belts installed, so I didn't have to deal with that, but definitely don't lose it. There is one video online from the company that shows the belt path. There's the belt path again. So, you know, don't lose these in case you ever have to change the belt. Some more belt videos and belt sheets here. So this all talks about the belts, which, like I said, it's already been done for us. Check all screws, fasteners, make sure they're all tight, loose. Check the voltage, 120 volt, 220 can be switched on the left of the control box. That's probably what that little hole was for. Yeah, deep inside that. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a square right here with the 120 110, 220 volt switch, so I haven't looked at that yet. I'll have to come back and take a look at that. Tension up the belts, move the XY axis smoothly, which this does move around quite well. And actually you shouldn't really do what I just did, because it generates a current from the stepper motors and it goes back through the control box. So try not to do that, what I just did. But that, if you had your stepper motors unplugged, it won't make a difference. But these do generate their own current. They make electricity, and we're moving 3 of them at the moment. We've got one on each corner and the center one, so I try not to do that. After confirming correct voltage, connect the power cables, plug 2 power cables into your outlet, turn on the power. So we'll do all this stuff together, and we'll get around to printing. Take care, people. I'll see you on the next video.